Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you may be. So, this is actually a series that I've wanted to do for a very long time. History is something that's always fascinated me, and within history we can learn a lot. Actually, it's a very rainy day here in my home city of Sendai, and I'm at the site of Aoba Castle. Actually, you can see just behind me is one of the remaining walls. Aoba Castle is very interesting because it looks over the city, and at the height of its prowess, at the height of its, I guess you can say the Date domain, it would have been a force looking over the entire domain to the ocean. Another very fascinating thing about it is it was black. One of the very few castles in Japan painted all black. And I think through Aoba Castle you get a great sense of the history, a great sense of the ups and downs, the different rulers, the different shogunate, and the different clans that have claimed this site for a long time. In fact, this site is said to date back even before the first settlers of, what is Japanese society came to the north, but actually by Emishi, and possibly even before them. If you don't know about Emishi were an ancient peoples with relation to the Jomon, which is something we can get into in another video, the Jomon and their history. But these people most likely crossed a land bridge in Hokkaido, and their genealogy is closely related to Turkic people and people of that Turkic region. And it's said that this was a site that they maybe even held sacred at that time, probably because it looked above the valley. Beyond that, there were more and more settlers of this forming and formulating, Yayoi-influenced Japanese society. And they started to mix and integrate. It was then at that point that Kokushi of the Shimizu clan would find this as a worthy place to build a fortified residence. This would remain until Ji samurai. Ji samurai were essentially farmers who were trained to battle, to be samurai, ended up taking over the domain. And it would remain kind of going back and forth, but having an early fortified look. And this would have been all the way up into the point until the infamous Battle of the Sekigahara. The Battle of the Sekigahara was one that shaped Japan's future. And this was when the Tokugawa clan was able to take reign, and we then saw a establishing himself leader in Date Masamune take control of the Sendai domain. Then the castle would go through plenty of changes, modernizing into castles of that time and castles as we know them today, with some of the iconic and distinct looks and architectural language. I've always wondered if it remained, how interesting it would have been to see Date Masamune, who was a well-studied person who valued education, wanted his domain to be educated. In fact, the original name of Sendai comes from an ancient Chinese poem, and the original characters, Sendai, meant 1,000 generations. It's a very fascinating, very poetic and beautiful name. Eventually it changed to the modern Sendai that we know of today. Throughout his reign, there was a lot of change and a lot of modernization, and the castle would have been able to look over the entire domain. Now, of course, this location, as with many locations throughout Japan and as a part of Japanese history, saw a lot of natural disasters, earthquakes, fires, battles. The castle was destroyed and rebuilt and destroyed and rebuilt time and time again. So it's actually not so easy to know exactly what it would have been and how it would have looked at different time periods. And even now, there's only scarce resources and artist depictions of what it may have been at that time. Later on, the Meiji government, as the Meiji Restoration was taking place to try to seal control over all of Japan, damaged a large portion of the castle and then later took over it and used it as a military base. It was also subject to bombing by the American Army in World War II, further destroying what was left. And at that point, it was decided that it maybe wasn't worth the trouble to rebuild. And because the resources were limited as to what it could have been, how it could have looked, then the recreation of it seemed like it would have been disingenuous. And so with all of this, with the repeated bombings, fires, it's an unfortunate thing that we've kind of lost. We don't really know what it would look like. But we can take our best guess. And I do think it's a testament to the people of Sendai, to the spirit, to try to rebuild time and time again, try to recreate. And something I want to do in this project, something I want to do with this video and with this series, starting now, is to try to recreate, try to imagine some of these historic sites, or simply just discuss them. As I said at the beginning, I've always been interested in history. I've always wanted to know more, and I'm certainly not an expert. I'm not educated in history besides the basics. I'm self-educated in mostly everything I know when it comes to history. But I have a fascination. And with that fascination, I think it would be interesting, with the audience, with you guys, for us to learn together. I want to take you now over to the site and show you what it looks like. And yeah, we can kind of just imagine. And now, the site has been memorialized by these series of stones. It's very interesting to imagine what could have been.